Hiya. So what I'm going to do today, or right now, is have a quick look at basically doing a Luma key. Okay, so it's very similar to a chroma key where you're trying to remove something. That's the key part. But obviously this time we're using luminance instead. And there's certain types of footage that really lends itself to this. So you'll see here what we've got is a bunch of stuff that's been filmed that's very bright, and it's been shot against a dark background. Okay. And yeah, and that means that basically it's an easy way to key something out is based on its luminance data. And that doesn't mean it has to be black and white only either. So even though that has an orange tint to it and things like that, it's still got a lot of brightness information there in comparison to the background. So again, we can still key it out. So I just wanted to have a quick look at how we do that. In fact, there's a couple of methods. I guess the fact that I want to do a Luma key straight away, I guess means that, in fact, actually, I like this clip. Let's go with this. No, not that one. Firebest. I was going to say the fact that I'm calling a Luma key, I guess means that we think, well, are we going to use a Luma key effect? And there is one actually available. So if I type that in here, Luma, you'll see we've got a Luma key. I'm going to drop that on there. And I just want to show you a couple of options that are available in here. So you'll see the key type. So you can either key out the darker areas or you can key out the brighter areas. So you can do it the opposite way around as well. Keying out the similar and dissimilar, to be honest, I haven't tried that, so I couldn't really tell you exactly how that one works, but you're welcome to give it a try. But generally, like I said, we want to key out the darker, and then from there you have a threshold. So as I start to then pull that, we can choose just how much of that darker information we want to take out. And you can see it looks really bad around the edges, quite sort of sharp as well, isn't it? It's sort of has a pixelated look, which isn't really what we want. What's quite nice, I guess, with the flames. Let's see if the tolerance actually does anything there. No, I was going to say we want the so do an edge feather though. So I was going to say what you can get away with flames is you can actually just soften it up a hell of a lot. So we'll pull that in a bit more. You do have an edge thin. Once you've kind of generated that, you can sort of pull it in from the edge, similar to when we do a normal key. I'll leave that. But you can see, like I said, while it does manage to key out the darker bits, it doesn't really do a great job. And you know, it's not really what we'd be after, I'd say, at all. So in fact, I was going to say, while I wanted to show you that the Luma key exists, it's not really something I'd recommend you use. In fact, what I would normally use is a matte, and that's what I want to show you guys instead. Or what's known as a track matte when you've got movement as well. So I'll get rid of that for a second. So what is a matte? A matte is basically something, it's a template, really, I guess that's the best way to describe it. It's a template that tells the image what parts stay and what parts go. And if something is white, like this circle right here, that part of the picture will stay. If something is black, like this background here, that part of the picture will go. Okay, as simple as. You can see we've also got a grey, and that reflects transparency, so the black and the white. So a grey means semi-transparent, basically. That's actually 50% that grey is. So if you think about it, white being 100, black being 0, that grey, like I said, is at 50%. And that information, the luminosity information, just basically translates over to opacity information. So we literally just take that and say, oh, it's 100%, so the image's opacity should be 100%. That's 0 on the black, so the image's opacity should be 0 there. Whereas here we've got 50%, so the opacity is set to 50, as simple as. All right, if I just turn that off, so you'll see basically I've just grabbed a still image. It looks like it's from Power Rangers. Now I could be wrong, and if I am, my apologies. I can't even remember where I grabbed this image now, to be honest. But we've got this image, and like I said, I've got this layer, I've called it matte template, and I put it on top. And now that that's on top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply, in fact, I've got it already open on here, so I'm just going to go to hide this for a second. There we go. So that's normally how your timeline may look. If I right click here, okay, where my sort of columns are, you'll see I get a columns option. There's a whole bunch of other types of column properties that I can have, and a lot of these are unticked, and the reason for that is just because if you had them all open, you'd run out of space really fast. So generally you're only sort of working with the columns that you want, and the rest stay closed. But the one I'm after today is modes. Okay, so I'm going to tick modes, and it gives us blending modes basically, which are here, and that's another option that you can use. So we could use a screen blending mode for the flames, but I find the track matte works better. So like I said, that's what I'm going to show you, but if you do want to know more, ask me in class. So, and you'll notice the track map, there it is. It only gives me the track map option on the actual giant. So if I turn the template off again, you see there's the giant, and I've got a track map option there, but not on my template. And that's because the way a track map works is it looks at the layer above and uses that as its template for what stays and what goes. So because this layer has nothing above it, the matte template, there's no track map option. If I stuck something above it, it would say, oh, do you want to use that layer above you as a track map? Okay, hopefully that's clear. So when we go back to giant.png, if I drop down the track map settings, you see obviously it says no track map. Now you can use alpha information. So if an image has semi-transparency already in it, or has, you know, the checkerboard background or anything like that, you can say, okay, I want you to use that information for what stays or goes. You can also do an inverted option, basically the other way around. So doing the opposite. So the bits that are invisible in one layer become visible in the other, which is exactly what happens here. So we've got Luma matte, that's what we want to use. We want to use a luminance information for what stays or what goes, and we've got a Luma inverted, and I'll show you what that does in a minute. So when I click Luma matte, you'll see what happens is it applies that template to this image. Okay, what it does, it automatically turns the layer above off as well, so you can't see what we had originally, but it's using it. In fact, you can see it's got a matte icon. That icon wasn't there before. So you can see the circle, which was white, we can see perfectly through that, and we can see our little sort of robot guy there. I don't know why I said little, he's huge, standing above a house. You'll see wherever it was black, we get nothing. Okay, all of that part of the picture is gone. And where we had the star, which was grey, we've got semi-transparency. You can partially see the guy through there. In fact, that's how your video image would look. So it looks a lot darker there, but that's because the opacity has been turned down. Okay, so that's basically what our track matte is doing. And in fact, if I go back to here and say Luma inverted, see it does the opposite. So where there's white, cuts out the picture. We get some semi-transparency here, and the rest of the image was black, and it's keeping the black parts. So that's what a track matte, sorry, does. Hopefully that's kind of clear, and I'll explain why I went to that when we started off looking at flames. We're sort of going all over the place here. Let's jump back to this now. Well, I say jump back to this. This is another clip that we've got. We can try it with the first one as well. Same thing. Again, you've got a flame. Okay, and what we're going to do this time is, well, for a track matte, why not just use itself? So in other words, I take this, and I'm going to duplicate it. Okay, so Command D if you're on a Mac, Control D if you're on a PC, and I'm just going to rename that to matte. Now I don't need to rename it, but I'm doing so just to help me distinguish between the two. Okay, and again on here I've got to right click columns, bring up modes. Okay, oh sorry, I was working through this. I see it's already set up, so I've just turned it off again. Right, okay. Yeah, like I said, all we do now is, again, you can see track map option, and I'm going to say Luma matte. And by the way, there's the layer name. In fact, maybe I should call it something else. Let's call it flame matte. Okay, and I'm calling it that because you'll notice when I come down here, it doesn't just say, oh, shall I use that as a Luma matte? It tells me which layer it's actually using as well. And like I said, by default, it's always the layer above it. So when I now tick that, what it does is it uses the information, the luminance information from the layer above in order to generate the matte. So that if you remember, the flame already had a black background and the flame was quite bright, and it's just using that information to decide what stays and what goes. So I find that usually works a lot better than the Luma Key, and you can see generally that's working quite well. And again, we're getting semi-transparency where the smoke is because you know, it is partially visible, it's brighter than the background, so that again repeats itself here. So really just using the image itself I find works the best. What's quite nice is we've used the same image obviously on itself, and the motion matches perfectly, so it cuts itself out perfectly, or exactly the same. But I've got a video clip here which has already been keyed, so we've got a subject who's keyed out. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a track matte to this as well, not for keying or anything like that, that's already been done, that's our footage there. What I'm going to do though is, let's find a nice clip. Okay, yeah, I like that one. I'm going to drop that on top of this video. Okay, so right, oops, let's go back to none. Sorry, a lot of these options are still ticked on, so I was testing it out. Right, so there's our video. Here is a layer I've dropped on top, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch this out a bit. Let's make it bigger. Okay, now I wouldn't normally recommend you do this. You can see it's starting to affect the quality of the image, but as a demonstration piece, it'll work quite nicely. So I've got smoke here, and again, this was filmed basically against obviously a black backdrop. The lights are generally placed to the side, so maybe on the right hand side here. Barn doors closed, so it doesn't cast any light on the black background, and it just shines straight through the smoke, so you sort of see it quite clearly. Now what I'm going to do is just turn that off for a second. The video clip's underneath, and what I'm going to do is for that video clip, I'm going to say use that smoke layer as your matte. Okay, Luma matte. And there we go. Now you'll see that we only see the video of the person where there's smoke. Okay, and even then actually the smoke isn't really pure white, hence why you're getting a semi-transparent image. That's not obviously how it would appear in the final video. Let's turn the checkerboard off. That's actually what we would end up seeing. Okay, but you can see the video only appears where there was smoke in the original thing. So again, it's a nice way to play around with track mattes. Okay, what I would suggest is have a go with it yourself. See how it works. And again, if you have any questions, let me know.